mean, you got on this bus, you had like 50 of us going together. 2 months later, 10 of us.
Wow.
What happened? And I had heard about these statistics, but to actually be part of it,
Right.
I wanted better.
Welcome to Climb Higher with Her, a podcast about women and their leadership journeys. I am Darlene Repollet, First Lady of Kean University in New Jersey, and your host. As a former corporate HR executive of 25 years, I have a passion for understanding what makes leaders thrive. We are going to speak with women leaders from government to business and everything in between to hear their stories, share their valuable lessons, and gain actionable wisdom. Today, we're joined by Sara Peña, an inspiring leader who spent her career opening doors and creating opportunities for others. I wanted to have Sara on because her story captures what this podcast is all about, finding purpose and empowering others. Well, I am excited to welcome our first guest of our first taping of Kean University's Climb Higher with Her podcast. We have as our guest a true powerhouse, an ultimate advocate for the community, and oh, by the way, a Kean alum, Sara Peña. Welcome, Sara.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to share, some time here with you all.
Thank you. Thank you. So again, we are totally excited. And, knowing a little bit about you, Sara, and about your journey, I think it's only right to start with this particular question, even though it's kind of a broad one. I wanted to ask, how did you get from Kean to where you are today?
Wow. That's a loaded question.
It is.
It really is. But by the grace of God, let me begin there.
Yes.
Nothing happens by coincidence, right? And so as a young Newark born, raised, and went to school in Newark, New Jersey, I went to a high school that was a technical vocational high school in Essex County. And I was graduating in June. And in April of that year, my guidance counselor stops me in the hallway. And I remember it vividly, like if it was yesterday. Wow. And she says to me, "Hey, Sara, where are you going to college?" And my response was like, "What's college? Like, what are you talking about?"
So wait, you had never really even had college as a thought?
Absolutely not. It was not a conversation at home.
Okay.
My parents migrated from Dominican Republic and Ecuador. Mom is from Ecuador, dad is from DR. They met here. So they had their own culture, shock. Yeah. But just even learning about the culture here in the United States and what students do. So my role was to get a secretarial job and provide and help out at home. So that was the goal, right? And in high school, senior year, you do like a work study program.
Yes.
So I was doing that in a law firm in Newark. And that was it. My dream was to graduate and work in the law firm. And that was it. So for her to say college, I was like, what are you talking about? And in the spaces that I was in, I was very, very, very shy. I know people don't believe me today.
I'm looking at you like, what?
My high school friends will say, wow, we remember this really shy girl. And so just for all the shy young women out there, we do grow out of it eventually so that, there's hope. But so she said, "What do you mean?" She pulled me into her office and sat me down and said, "Oh my God, you have the grades." And she said, "Well, I graduated from this school called Kean College." And no idea where Kean was. Mm-hmm. And she was like, "I graduated from there. I know someone there in administration. I could try to get you in."
Wow.
I was like, well, what am I going to do there? Like, I don't understand, right? So you're talking to a young woman who's never been exposed and you're hitting her with all these different things. And I can't make a decision right there. I have to go home.
Sure. Talk with the family.
And explain. And so there was a lot of that. And finally, she got me into the EOF program here at Kean. That was the only way I can come because I was lacking the academic support. I didn't have the classes. I didn't have all of that.
The importance of the Educational Opportunity Fund for so many students.
And it was such a door of opportunity for us to come to a university like Kean. And back then, like I said, it was Kean College. And that's how I ended up here on this beautiful campus.
Wow. And so take us through the journey, right? You end up not knowing anything about college. You come EOF, so that means you were here in the summer, right? You were here for a summer program. Talk to us about that college journey.
So we're going to cry early on this in this podcast.
Oh boy. Okay. We do have the tissues ready.
So I think, and I say this a lot because I think my journey is not so different than many, many others that have gone through this road, right? And I think coming to Kean, EOF, I didn't know what EOF was. So I didn't know that there was a team that was going to support me, right? So I thought this is the way I go to school. But then think back about the barriers in our communities. How was I going to get to this school that was in the middle of somewhere I had never been? I had never been outside of North Newark.
Wow.
And how was I going to get there? I didn't have money. I didn't have financial aid because remember April, and I was graduating in June.
It was late.
EOF was starting at the end of June, like right after graduation. So I had to figure it out. And I had to take 3 buses in at 6 o'clock in the morning. I started to get here to the 8 o'clock classes at EOF started.
Wow.
And I think I had mentioned this before, but on that bus ride, that's really where I started seeing there's a difference. There's something going on. And I want some of that Kool-Aid, right?
Yeah.
So I got on the bus in Newark and it moved through East Orange, Irvington, and we got to the Irvington train terminal and then we had to take the other bus to Elizabeth and then from Elizabeth to get to Union, right? And during my travels for that summer, there was a lot of kids that would come on the bus and be all happy about going to this thing called college.
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, I made one best friend. And the bus would pick her up in East Orange and, we just sing songs. It was a very long ride.
Singing songs.
Singing songs, and just, trying to make the best of it. But, I saw their faces and I saw how happy they were to come to this place called Kean and how they had worked so hard. Most of them went to private schools or Catholic schools. They came from different backgrounds. And I was like, well, I want what they want, what they have, what they're looking for. Obviously, somebody has a secret here. And I want to find out what that is because I want to feel good about myself.
Yeah.
I want to feel good about this thing called college. And I got to do this. So long story short is, it was struggling because we had those barriers as Latinos or African American that come from urban communities where the lack of resources, our parents don't have good jobs or they don't understand what college is or what it, so you don't have support. You're kind of like on your own and you're digging real deep. Like, is this really what I want? Or should I just quit and go work?
And you had told me before that you saw some of your friends and other students fall off during that summer or not return in the fall, right?
Yeah.
And what was it within you, right? That really something was in you that said, no, this is what I should be doing and this is what I should be pushing for and pursuing. What really was that, especially given that you didn't know anything about college?
So as I reflect back, I truly, truly believe it's God.
Yeah.
That there's a purpose. Why I didn't give up. You had like 50 of us going together. 2 months later, 10 of us.
Wow.
What happened, right? What happened? And I had heard about these statistics, but to actually be part of it,
right?
I wanted better. I came from a low income family. Language barriers. All we saw was the typical, in urban communities, drugs, teen pregnancies. Just I aspired to. That's what all I saw, right? So then when you're exposed to only that, that's all you think you have. But here I had the opportunity when I came on this campus to see different people. Not only, it was just different cultures, different Latinos, right? They different African American people, like different communities just come together and everybody was just trying to make it. And I think it was really just, I wanted to get out.
Wow.
I wanted to get out. I knew there was better somewhere.
Yeah.
And I wanted to find that. And I just couldn't give up because what was I going back to? I had nothing. So this was better than what I had, so I had to stick it through. And there was challenges. There was food insecurities. There was financial issues. There was, how am I going to get through this? There was working 3 jobs. At a point halfway through, I saw I wasn't going to finish. And then I said, I got to move out. I got to live on campus. So how do I live on campus? How do I make that work? And then I started leveraging the relationships I built on campus with my friends and people I met. Well, how did you do this? So I started asking questions. That shyness, I had to get rid of that.
Yeah. So I hear you talking about, number one, faith and knowing, right, that God put you here for a purpose. But beyond knowing that, you have to take your own self-action too. So I hear you talking about grit and resilience. And those are key things for all of us to be able to live in our purpose. And then you're starting to talk about realizing there are resources around me. Let me take advantage of those resources. Let me find out what those resources are and really put them to work for me. Talk a little bit more about that in terms of the different resources that you started to see and find on campus and ultimately utilize, because we can know career services is in the next hall over. We can know there's an academic advisor that I should be seeing. We can know that, I didn't quite understand what the professor was teaching. Maybe I should go to their office hours, but to then take the action and really go.
Great. Yeah, that is great because so I'll speak for myself. I was raised, you have to stay humble. And then the minute you walk out that door, the mask is on. Mm-hmm. You cannot let anyone know what's happening at home.
Wow.
Whether it's domestic violence, alcoholism, whatever, what's happening. And many of us were like kind of trained like that.
Yes.
And so when you step on the ground at Kean, I was already thinking like that. Like it would be a sign of weakness, right? And so I really, it was hard. So yes, that grit, but I knew, and I started seeing and surrounding myself with people that wanted to do something. And I said, okay, I have to follow this model because if not, I'm going to get out. I mean, I wasn't going to class. I felt overwhelmed in the classroom. I wasn't asking the professor questions. I was, an F here and F there. Oh, I'll make it up in the summer, right? But then I started realizing my loans are getting bigger.
Right.
And then I said, wait a minute, I'm in this thing called EOF. There's counselors and I see the other kids going and getting help. I should ask. So I started leaning and the I didn't go to career services till like my junior year. Mm-hmm. Why? I knew they existed.
Yes.
Even the health. We had a health team here on campus. I didn't even go, mental health, do a check-in, just kind of, talk about what's going on.
Yes.
And so it internally, yes, I could have gave up at any given moment. But there was something in me that said, you got to keep going because you know what? You got to be the example for those that come from where you come from. And so I started seeing it differently. I started changing my mindset.
Yes.
And I said, I'm going to do whatever it takes. So I stopped working 3 jobs that I was working on. And I worked 2, right? I got engaged here on campus. I asked for advice. Yeah, I wasn't in the in the advisor's office every week. But when it came to registration and understanding my course or where am I in this process? How many credits do I need? What's my mate? Where am I? I had to ask. So surrounding yourself with the same people that wanted the same thing was really important. That really changed. That really helped me a lot.
Birds of a feather flock together, right?
Yes.
Right. And that could be for good or for bad.
Yes.
It depends. It depends.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There was the other side to college life.
And let's be honest, when folks start out at college, often they're very different freshman year to senior year, and that's growth.
Exactly.
It's growth that takes place. There's transformation and change.
Yes.
When you talked about mindset and really changing your mindset and being willing to step out of your comfort zone, that's so critical. So critical.
Yeah.
And so ultimately you graduate and start on this road of what I view as an amazing career.
Thank you.
And so What are the motivations and steps along your career journey that have really led you to where you are ultimately today?
Thank you. Yes, I think one thing I would like to add to my, career here at, well, school career at
Yes.
Kean was I became a cheerleader. So I'm really proud of that because cheerleading is a sport.
It is. It is. Go cheerleaders.
Go Cougars. So,
Yes.
that was really nice. It was something that I had dreamed of as a little girl.
Oh,
And I thought I never saw cheerleaders that looked like me, but I came here and there were cheerleaders that looked like me.
yeah.
And one of them happened to be my roommate.
Okay.
And she's like, you could be a cheerleader. And I never wore makeup. And she would say, just got to add a little lipstick. And, you got to do your hair. You can't wear a hat every day. I was like, okay, I think I could do that. So I thought, that also exposed me to a whole nother world in the athletic world and how we went to cheerleading camp. And it was because of Kean.
Yeah.
It gave us those opportunities. So just getting engaged on campus also helped me a lot.
Yes.
As well as
campus engagement.
Yeah, and as well as pledge a sorority, I got, to be part of that first multicultural sorority here at Kean University. And it was a big deal. It was a big deal. We would see a lot of people that looked like us walking around campus. So today it looks so much better. But, back then it was challenging. But I just want to say thank you to all of those that came before us, that were here, that were our coaches, that were our teachers, that were there, so it's a lot to be grateful for. But going back to my career, your question, I was blessed and grateful to finish at 6 years here at beautiful Kean. And I got my degree in management science because at that point I had taken so many classes. I didn't know. I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a doctor. But the credits and the money, right, the loans I had taken, it was like too much for me. So I had to get out. So my counselor was like, okay, management science. So I got my degree in management science, but it was a great opportunity because it opened my doors to managing and theoretically and now going out there in my career and doing it hands-on. So during my time at Kean, like I mentioned, I had 3 jobs, but all of them were in hospitality.
Okay.
So one of my managers from one of the hotels, she goes, listen, my husband is a doctor and he's opening a firm and, practice in the city. And I'd love for you to manage his practice and just start up with him. He was a young guy, and that's what I did. I went with him. I went to work, and
so
I
that
managed.
was your first job after graduation.
After graduation,
okay.
And it was because of the degree. And she's like, "Oh, you're management science, so you know how to manage." Well, it's one thing to read it in the books, but it's another
theory versus in practice in real life.
Yep, with everything, right? So being exposed to that really gave me a good opportunity to be in the city for about 13 to 15 years. I was there until 9/11 happened.
Okay.
And then I had I had a child, and he was about 1 year old. And I said, I can't do this commute into the city anymore. But the practice was able to come to Newark. And they opened a satellite office just so I can work there and help them. And they did that for a couple of years. And then I started getting more engaged because my passion had been to give back to this great city called Newark, New Jersey. To me, Newark was like, the place, and it still continues to be in my heart. And so I wanted to volunteer in a nonprofit, and I took the opportunity when I came back to volunteer in a nonprofit called La Casa de Don Pedro in Newark, and in the immigration department, because that was really important to me, to make sure that I can help and be the voice for those that were just like me when I was young, or my family. And I knew there were other families like ours that were struggling, and I wanted to give back that way. So I volunteered and did that while working, and eventually got involved with some organizations like Leadership Newark that exposed me to other issues happening in Newark that weren't only prevalent to the North Ward, but there was the East, the South, West. Everybody had different issues. So learning about the issues. And then I had this wonderful, wonderful woman one day just look at me, meet me. I don't remember if it was an event, part of Leadership Newark, but it gave me the opportunity to meet some really good people. And when I met her, she said, Sarah, I need to talk to you. And I had just met her maybe like a week before, and I meet with her. She goes, I see something in you.
Wow.
And I can't help to wonder, does she see that little girl that was getting on that bus, that grit, that wanted something better, that wanted to get out, that wanted to do good, that wanted to give back? Who is she seeing? Who am I showing up as?
Right.
And so through my career, she said, I believe in you and I see something. And she took me along, and through the late Councilman Mildred Crump,
yes,
she had me work on her campaign as her traveler. So I
Okay.
got to hear firsthand, the issues and how an elected official really reacts to community and her engagement. It was the best thing that happened to me. But it was because these women saw something and took me under their wing.
And that's the piece I want to get to is you have to show up as yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wholeheartedly understand what you're saying in terms of, okay, that's that little girl who's coming back to say, no, I am going to push through this. I do have the self-determination. I am going to find my purpose in life. But then there's people along the way
Mm.
who we either may realize or may not realize they're watching us, right? And then for her to say, I see something in you, and to take you under her wing and give you an opportunity, another and a different opportunity, right?
Yeah.
So it's really about being who we are, being authentic. And then along the way, there are these people who are just going to kind of come into our lives and impact them. And so that leads me to another fabulous story that I know you have in terms of being appointed to Governor Phil Murphy's administration. Talk to me about that. How did that happen?
It still feels like a dream. I think back this little girl sitting on the porch on 6th Street in Bloomfield Ave and, not just dreaming of things but not knowing where to go or have a direction or anything. And then I saw myself at this Golden Dome. I drive to Trenton and I see this Golden Dome. And I actually used to, at the beginning, this is going to be corny, but I used to take pictures on the highway of this Golden Dome because I was like, I cannot believe that I'm working for the governor of the
state of New Jersey.
Yeah. And I was like, wow. So yeah, it became very surreal, but it was an opportunity. So I knew I wanted a better life, and I was living in Newark, and I was with this, situation. Life happens, and I found myself with a young, child, and what am I going to do? And I was still volunteering and being engaged. I knew, and I was working on campaigns and just kind of building my social capital, right? Mm-hmm. And then I said, but I need an education. I need a master's. How am I, if I want to grow, I started seeing the people around me, once again, who you surround yourself with, be intentional with that. And I said, but they're how are they getting these jobs? How are they becoming deputy mayors or directors of economic development? How? And they had masters.
Okay.
And then I said, okay, I got to figure out a way how to get money to get a master's, right?
Go and get a
master's.
That's
the challenge. Finance is the challenge. So I said, well, you know what? I'm just going to. So Rutgers had an executive master's program, and I was able to enroll and get my master's degree. And because of the master's degree, I was able to get a job at University Hospital and develop the community engagement area for them and work closely with like the senior leadership and public affairs and kind of. And then a couple years in there is when I get a call, and they're like, we want to offer you a position to work with Governor Phil Murphy. I was like, what?
So this call literally comes out of the blue.
Out of the blue.
You had no idea.
No idea. I'm going about my business and day to day, I'm sitting, I'll never forget it. I'm sitting there and the phone rings, my cell phone rings, and I didn't even recognize the number, but I figured, let me answer it. And they said, hey, Sara Peña, yeah, we got your name. They didn't tell me from who.
Okay.
And they said, we'd like to sit down and have a conversation about a position, and we're thinking you'd be a great fit for. So I'm thinking, wow, there's an interview process and there's all this stuff. And I ask, and they're like, well, we kind of like, you were highly recommended. Wow. So it's walking, my life, I've always lived like with integrity.
Yes.
Right? Because, and under the radar, right? Because that's how we're raised, under the radar. You can't shine too bright, right? You can't shine too bright and don't ask too many questions, right? But I started learning that no.
Yep.
I need to let my light come through.
Yes.
I need to show the world the work that I'm doing because it's impactful work. It's impactful work. So I'm a strong believer in that and supporting. So yes, I got the call, and we want you to come to Trenton and meet with the Secretary of State.
Wow.
The Lieutenant Governor today, Tahisha Way, and she was amazing, and met Tiffany Williams, who was the Assistant Secretary of State at the time. And these women just like, we had a great conversation, and they never told me who
And the rest
recommended
is
me, and the
history.
rest is history.
So can we break that down a little bit? Because you've said a few key things in there that I don't want to lose. We talk a lot to people, right, around mentorship and also this word sponsorship.
Mhm.
What happened to you is literally sponsorship, where many times you have no idea who is talking your name up in a room where you're not even in that room. And that's what happened. And you still to this day don't even know who that is. It's amazing, right?
Yes.
But that is literally the model of sponsorship. And so our listeners might be thinking, okay, well, how do I get a sponsor?
Right.
But it's about everything you said. You had integrity. You were working your job. You were networking, talking to people, giving back, and excelling at every job that you were doing. And so again, people were noticing. So it's not that you were actively out there, trying to pursue this particular thing, but because of the excellent work that you had been doing all along the way, someone mentioned your name in a room.
Yes. And so as I sit here today, I think back, what would I tell that little girl that was sitting outside Hutchison Hall, figuring out, do I have enough money to get home? Or do I have enough money to go to Roy Rogers? Back then we had a Roy Rogers down the street, to buy a two-piece and share it with my friend who also didn't have money. And I would say, hold on tight.
Yes.
Because you're going to go for a great ride.
Wow.
And this isn't the end.
Right.
This isn't the end. This is
Right.
like only the beginning for me. So yeah, it's really surreal for me, and I never forget those opportunities, and I make sure that I'm intentional with those around me that want it, because sometimes, people feel that entitlement, oh, well,
Yeah.
I've done this, I should be getting that promotion or so. No, it's with integrity and walk in faith and just know your purpose, and the right people will come along and help you. And sometimes you do have to pivot and go get your master's, or,
Right.
you've got to do the work, because it's not going to be
Absolutely.
just spoon-fed to you. So, and align yourself with people that are thinking like you. We all want to go hang out until 2:00, not anymore, till 2:00 in the morning, but, and dance and have a good time. Well, now I dance until 9 p.m. and then I'm home to rest, right? So you got to make adjustments to your life. Doesn't mean stop doing what you love. It's just in moderation.
Yes.
So there's a lot of growth that happens. There's a lot of, bumps on the road, but if you want to do it, you'll get to it.
Well, I want to take something that you just said too, in terms of advice to your younger self, sitting outside the classroom or sitting outside the hall, trying to make decisions. With that, you have also given back to the community so significantly in so many different ways. And so, tell us a little bit about the nonprofit that you started. You already mentioned that when you were here on campus, you were one of the co-founders for the first multicultural sorority here at Kean University. And I know there's other organizations that you were part of starting too. So I've asked a lot in that question, but kind of break it down for us, starting with your nonprofit, which I know is near and dear to your heart. Tell us a story about that, and some of the other stories around starting organizations.
Yeah, so I get a little bit emotional about it, because it started early on, sitting in front of a church at nighttime, being locked out of my home, because of whatever's going on, and sitting there and just thinking, one day I'm going to make things better for people like me.
Wow.
And I struggle with that, especially now in time about immigration.
Yes.
And families being separated, and the language barriers and all of that. So being a young adult, and at a mini adult at a young age, having to translate for my mom, being told that my mom should speak English. She lives in America, just going through all of that at an early age at 8, 9, 10, I wanted to make things better.
Yeah. And you had to grow up fast.
Yeah. And I have a younger sister. She's a year younger, but, it was a team effort. And, I just knew that I had to give back and I had to do it in a way that it would help. So when I volunteered at the La Casa de Don Pedro, they gave me a chance. And I saw families still going through that struggle, right? And then I said, okay, so I helped as much as I could. They were great. They offered me a part-time job. Of course, I was going to take it. Meanwhile, I had my full-time. I was a mom, a single mom, and now I wanted to do volunteer. But, that's what we do, right? And then I'm like, okay, maybe this plan wasn't thought out well. But anyway, to start, so I knew in my heart there had to be something. And when I was faced with a divorce and I had this young child, I said, oh my God, how can I make things better for him? And then as he got older and he went to middle school, he had a career day where he was exposed to great leaders. He got in the car. And I had learned early on in daycare, the teachers told me, don't ask him open-ended questions, right? And I didn't know that. As a mom, we don't have the manual.
Or close-ended questions.
Close-ended
right?
questions.
Yes.
Yes. You're right. Close,
yes.
Ask him the open where you can have a conversation.
Yes.
So I said, oh, goodness, that sounds like a good idea because, you're exhausted working all day. You pick up the kid. You don't want to really have a whole full-blown conversation. And my son loves to talk. So anyway, we got into the conversation about, so I practiced that. And as he got older, we got into the conversation about how was your day? And he shared that career day was great, but there was nobody that spoke Spanish. I was like, wait a minute, this school's in Newark. You mean to tell me, they couldn't find anybody that spoke Spanish? Because, Mom, I don't know, but they didn't talk Spanish. I said, wow, so how do I expose this young man to leaders that look like him and that speak Spanish? And it just came to me one day and I said, I'm going to do a conference, but I didn't know where to start. I said, oh, goodness. So I went to my network because I had already helped campaign and I had met some people. And I said, you know what, let me. So I met the CEO of United Way, the deputy mayor at the time, Margarita Muniz. And I went to her and I said, listen, I got this idea. What do you think? She looked me dead in the face and said, why not, chica? Why not you? Like, what's the fear, right? It's fear that holds us back from starting things. And it's really starting things about that we're passionate about. And I've seen it a lot more grow more today in young women and men. And I love it. I love it because it's like getting out of our own way. And so I was able to started with a conference.
Okay.
And it was the Young Latino conference. And then eventually it translated into the Young Men's Leadership Conference because everyone was coming. Mm-hmm. And we did it right here in Newark in partnership with Rutgers, with Dr. Diane Hill. And it just grew and grew. And we like to keep it small because we wanted the students to interact one-on-one with the presenters.
Okay.
But, we kept it at 200 students, and it's every year, and it's been around since 2013. So we're really excited. And that was the thing because I wanted to expose my son. And this organization, I didn't have a board. It wasn't about that. Mm-hmm. It was about what impact and how can I change one young man's life that attends. Yes. And I've had testimonials that have made me cry. And they say, because I went to your conference and it was held on a college campus. I was intentional with that. Why?
Yes.
Because that didn't happen to me. Yeah. Right. And so because of that, some young men, like I came to Rutgers and I went to the Honors Living Program and I did this, or I went to Kean because I heard you went to Kean. Mm-hmm. So there were so many things and exposing our young men. So Boys to Leaders Foundation really began with the young men for like 5 years, really leading the organization, telling me what they wanted, workshops that they wanted for this conference. And eventually I needed a board to help me deliver. Right. And today we have scholarships that we're able to give away. And we're really excited to start a leadership academy.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
That's a testament to seeing a problem and not just complaining or talking about the problem, but fixing it. So you said, wait a minute, there's no Spanish-speaking folks that they could find for the career fair? Okay, well, I'm going to create something. Right. And I feel like you must have done that when you were part of founding the sorority too, and all the other things that you've done. So again, that's, seeing a problem and actually figuring out, well, how can I be part of fixing that and really be part of the change?
Yeah. And if I can, Darlene, just kind of add to that is getting involved in organizations or nonprofit early on really helps. It helps you understand also, what do I like to do? So I always encourage people to try it, go volunteer somewhere so that you know what you like, what you don't like, because we can talk about the issues here and I can talk about immigration, affordable housing and all these things. But if you're not passionate about it, you're not going to be good at it. And so I was blessed and grateful. Once again, I had a good network that exposed me to the first Latina statewide organization here in New Jersey that had been created back when McGreevey was governor, and Latinas United for Political Empowerment. And they exposed me to leaders like deputy mayors or executives in Jersey City. And those women, I saw what they were doing and I kind of, okay, if they can do it right. And so then I surrounded myself with those women, but then I gave back to the organization. It wasn't only about taking.
Yeah.
It's about giving back.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I was able to start with some really great women, a scholarship committee for them, and I stayed on. No board experience, right? No board experience, went on and just gave of my time and my skill set, and eventually became president of that organization, where they changed the bylaws to keep me on an additional year.
Look at that.
So I don't know. I guess I was doing okay. So, but that's, following your passion. And I knew that I wanted to give back and I wanted to help. And I think that's important, finding that passion and just go for it and trying out different things. And it's okay. What's the worst that can happen?
Right.
So getting out of our own way sometimes is really important.
Yes. I like that, finding your passion, but the only way you can do that is to try things out.
Yes.
Try along the way.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, Sara, this conversation has been fantastic, and I want to thank you for sharing, telling us about your life story, not only from, here at Kean, but your journey in your career and all of the things along the way, right? And so as we wind down, we can't let you go without putting you through what's considered our final segment. And so it's called the Climb Higher with Her Rapid Fire Round. So it's really simple. Don't overthink it. I just want you to go with your gut. So here we go. Coffee, tea, or water?
Coffee.
Snacks, salty or sweet?
Salty.
Beach or pool?
Beach.
Early bird or night owl?
Changes over age.
Oh, okay. And last but not least, what's the best concert you've ever been to?
Bad Bunny. I didn't go to the new one. I went when he was starting.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
When
Well, I guess you're excited for the Super Bowl.
Yes, I am. Yes. Looking forward to it. Yep.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you survived our first round of rapid fire. So I want to close us out and wrap up now. And before we do that, in one word, I wanted to ask you, what's your biggest takeaway for our listeners based on the conversation that we had today?
The biggest takeaway is being able to share the story. We're told so many times not to share and be vulnerable. Given the opportunity to share and given the space to share the story that hopefully will inspire someone or help someone change the way they think about something is my takeaway. So, I mean, for me, it's growth for myself.
Yeah.
This helps me get out of that shyness. And I work hard on that every day to come out of that shell and be able to share whatever it is, whether it's an opportunity, whatever it is, my story to help inspire and make my community better.
That's awesome. Thank you for that, Sara. And, what I hear you saying in that is we don't stop learning.
No.
Right? And we don't stop growing and developing.
No.
It continues. It should continue.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And
Thank you.
I'm going to close out with a quote for the people that are listening. And I recently read this quote, and guess what? It's by you, Sara.
Oh.
So the quote is, the most important thing is simply to show up, not for anyone else, but for yourself. And I think that's worth repeating. The most important thing is simply to show up, not for anyone else, but for yourself. And Sara, I chose that quote because you are the example of what happens when you show up for yourself and how your success then becomes other people's blessings. So Sara Peña, thank you for leading us, and thank you for allowing us to climb higher. Thank you for listening to Climb Higher with Her, a podcast produced by Kean, a proud research university. Subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. For more information, visit kean.edu/climb higher with her.